bartending robot. So fundamentally, there's a lot of things that have to happen and a lot of things that have to go right for this to work.
Okay.
So to kind of show you, one of the things we've got to do is we've got basically a couple of things that we need to build. First of all, we'll call this box that I'm terrible at drawing at. This is the app. Now, fundamentally, this could be a million different things, but the important thing is that this is going to issue commands to the robot. It will probably be a real app, just because reasons.
What does that mean? Probably be a real app. How do you have a fake app?
You could have just a pure web app, or you could potentially have just like an API that you hit with, say, Perl or other commands that you don't actually need a full-on app for. The thing that it's important to remember is that, like, we're basically creating this kind of interface here, and theoretically, depending on how we build it, we could put a lot of things over in this app world.
Mm-hmm.
But realistically, the whole point of this project is so that our wedding guests can download an app and have a robot mix their drinks for them. That is probably the easiest option. I'm not, maybe not, I'm not sold. There may be some other options that are actually better off. Fundamentally, what will happen though is we'll end up in some technological stack, some web tech stack, whether that be a full-on native app using something like React Native or Ionic to do kind of a web view, which is like way more information than you need, but like basically bundle up some web stack stuff and then make it an app, or it will potentially just be a go to nateandapril.com on your phone, and then you can do the stuff and things.
Okay, ELA 5?
There's a lot of different things that we need to do. Fundamentally, there's two different things. We have the robot and we have the controller.
Okay, cool.
And especially like the use case being that not only do we potentially want people to be able to order their own things without having to stand next to the robot, but more importantly, when we're married and this thing can live in our house, I can like get on my phone and say, I want this drink ready for me when I get home, push a button, and then I drive up and then I just go get it. Yeah, that's kind of the idea.
Cool.
So fundamentally, all the brains and kind of craziness is going to be over here in the robot world. But jumping right into embedded programming is probably a spooky thing. Little preface to this, I am a software engineer. I have been for over a decade. My fiance here has learned about robots from kind of our side business where we teach robotics and programming to schools. But other than that, she is pretty green. She's had some little bit of R programming knowledge, but nothing great.
A little bit of R, a little bit of SAS, played on GitHub.
Yeah, so basically the whole goal is that we're getting married in about a year, and not only do we want a cool project to do, but we thought it would be fantastic to kind of teach April about how to do some of these more intense programming things and have a awesome bartending robot, because freaking robots. So, okay, so basically here we have
Dog tax.
basic kind of, this thing is going to control this thing.
Okay.
To kind of start this whole series, what we're gonna do is start off in probably HTML, give April just a quick kind of rundown what we're going to do. After HTML, we'll end up in CSS. Fairly straightforward stuff there. After CSS, we'll go into JavaScript, and that will give us a base understanding of kind of web things. Now, most of the civilized world, as I like to call it, use some kind of front-end framework these days. We will probably end up in React, not guaranteed by any means, but basically we're expecting this to be, like I said, kind of an app that you could go get. So this will either ended up being React Native or potentially like Angular, which would be Ionic. I've used Ionic in the past, it's pretty slick, and that will give us more or less the web stack, giving us kind of just a fancy user interface for people to play with. Once we do that, we're going to end up actually starting the kind of robot process. Well, we're kind of start with a server probably. That may not be a full-on HTTP server. We may do some things a little bit differently, but probably do some things in Node. Then we're probably do some, sorry, it's really hard to write on this tiny little tablet server. And then once we get the server kind of playing around, we're gonna actually do some of the hardware setup. For the actual robot itself, I don't think I've said this, we're planning on using a Raspberry Pi, and probably a Raspberry Pi 4, because that's the newest and best version right now. And we're not really caring about speed so much, but I think it makes a lot of sense to do some of this dev in the Raspberry Pi Linux world, which is just a bit different. For most of this, we'll do some probably just in Windows, even though I'm not the biggest fan. And then we'll probably just hook up a Raspberry Pi to our keyboards, to the monitors, and do all the things. Or we'll remote desktop in because I need all the hardware to do all the recording. So we'll kind of figure that out as we get there. So once we get some of the hardware stuff figured out, that's the actual like drink mixing, like the different motors, potential sensors that we're gonna need to figure out how we reload the thing. Because fundamentally the idea is that we're gonna buy some set amount of alcohol for the wedding. It will sit in some shelf or something somewhere, and then throughout the night we'll have some kind of, I don't know, attention person? Attendant. Yes, attendant. Words. Have an attendant basically say, oh, the X is low. I need to go swap out the bottle from this one to the other one. And so basically that will be something that will just kind of have to happen. So once we get that figured out, then we will actually we'll start to get the everything all kind of put together with the server and everything else. So we'll call this integration. So one of the things, and one of the big reasons that we're doing web up front is there's an awesome little website called the Cocktail DB, ran by an awesome guy or group of guys, and they have basically went and built a bunch of static APIs that are super easy for us to use. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up, the Cocktail DB, which is this awesome thing. So there's a whole bunch of pictures. There's basically the reason that we're doing the app as the controller is because we're never, I wouldn't say never, but we're not planning on sticking all of the information about how to make every drink on the Pi. We're just telling the Pi, hey, I want you to make me a tequila slammer, so I need 1 shot of tequila and 1 thing of 7-Up. And the Pi doesn't know that it's making a tequila slammer, it just knows that it's making 1 part this, 1 part that. So there is a reason to the madness that is the 2 parts, and this is one of the reasons. This Cocktail DB, I'm a Patreon, it's fantastic. I've used some of these guys' other APIs just because they're so easy to work with. So highly support these guys, and take a look if you would like. So, well, we're planning on ending up there, with that being kind of where the app will connect to the Cocktail DB, and that will tell the robot what to do. So right now the plan is we're planning on streaming Monday, Wednesday, Friday for probably about an hour, 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. First 10 minutes, if you guys want to come ask questions, you want to come get to know us, whatever is kind of whatever the viewers want. And then we're spend about probably 40 minutes going into whatever subject we're talking about. And then say the last 10 minutes will probably be questions that we've kind of had along the way, and kind of wrapping up, figuring out what is next steps. We are getting married in a year. Literally, this project could very well take us the next 6 months, 9 months, just to get freaking working. So there's a lot to get figured out. There's a lot of fun, a lot of crazy that's gonna happen from now and then. You excited?
Very excited.
Very excited with all the dogs and everything.
Oh, yeah. Well,
awesome.
I mean, we had to provide a dog tax.
That's fair. Dogs are important. Dogs are life. So that's kind of quick overview to get a couple things set up. Now we're gonna go get a text editor is what they're called. VS Code stands for Visual Studio Code, is my favorite. There's a number of them out there. I mean, you really don't need hardly anything. The reason why VS Code I recommend is that it's fairly bare bones but highly customizable. So once you download it, then go ahead and run the exe. Let this install. Some of the other tools we're gonna need along the way are some of the React things, maybe React Native, Node, and some of these other kind of peripheral things. But right now, realistically, all we gotta do is I'm gonna go ahead and make a folder here, and we're gonna call this Robotic Bartender. Other thing we're gonna go get is Git. This is something that highly recommend. This is kind of tertiary to the actual coding. Git is fantastic because you never lose work. The thing that's just so different is realizing that yes, you can back up your code in a Google Drive server or whatever, but the thing that Git does differently is it actually stores deltas. It stores the changes of what you do, and you can kind of log what it is you are changing or the reason behind you are changing things rather than just the most recent up-to-date version.
Yeah, you can go back to those old ones. You can access everything.
Right. So we're gonna go grab Git, install it here. We're gonna install it, and this is actually gonna install the full Git bash because Windows command line is just not, like, I'm sure it'll work. I'm sure people will have ways to make anything work. I don't recommend it. It's not worth trying to deal with all that. So install it basically all the way normally, and then we're gonna open it up. We'll do basically create the project, create a GitHub repo where we're gonna be storing everything. So if anybody wants to take a look at where we are, grab the code, work on, fork it, do whatever you want. Like, it'll be super easy if you already know this stuff. And then, yeah, we'll probably not go for too much longer tonight. Yeah, we'll get something set up. We'll have a basic HTML page going on, and yeah, go on from there. So this opens in our base directory. I'm gonna use the ls command, which lists the things that I can see in this directory. So right now I'm actually in the user directory, so I'm going to cd change directory to desktop and then projects, because, well, I'll cd to desktop and then I'm gonna ls again, and I'm gonna be able to see the projects folder. That is where we actually made the Robotic Bartender project. We can ls again, and then we can cd to Robotic Bartender. Now, if you are super panicked about this whole command line crazy things going on, like, you don't have to do this. You can use all the GUI tools built into VS Code and other tools to actually do all of the Git things. If you guys are interested in me showing you that, I'm more than happy to. But there's a lot to be said for understanding how the command line works, especially when it's actual, like, bash. So we're gonna probably focus on doing that a little bit and just trying to explain that it's not super scary. You'll be okay. One of the things that I show everybody is you come here. So this is what you need to remember. If you want to do impress your friends, you do an ls-r base. Let's see, what's ls-help? Big R, ls-r. So you do something like this, and you tell everybody and all your friends that you're hacking the CIA and you're just going so fast and and most of them probably aren't gonna believe you, but you could change the colors so that it's like green and matrixy. That's a great time. If you're purely in this to impress your friends, I think there's something called hacker code as well. Hacker typer. Yeah, this is fantastic. And you just do all the stuff and things so fast all the time. Anime scream! Yeah, so you get the point. Command line good, fundamentally. So now that we're here at the command line.
Just to clarify, so you're moving kind of quickly, and if someone doesn't know what the heck is going on, He's in Git, the Git command line right now, not the
Well,
Visual Studio, right?
Technically, I'm in Bash, which is like the Linux thing. Git doesn't have its own command line. It's a tool used from the command line and from like GUI tools, graphical user interface tools.
Okay, that was a little bit confusing, but you're basically talking to Git?
Yeah, so what
Okay.
we're going to do is we're going to do a command called git init, which does exactly what it sounds like. It initializes a Git repository, and it says, cool, I have an empty Git repository, and you're like, awesome. And we can do a touch readme say md, which that creates that file. If you type ls, you can see it there. And then we can do a git add dot, which takes everything that you can see and make sure that you capture all the changes that we were talking about. And then git commit -m, meaning message, and we're gonna say woot first commit. Cool. So we just created some Git things, but right now if my computer started on fire, we'd lose everything we've done, which is not a lot. But one of the reasons that we use version control all over in the real world is because we don't, like, you can't lose anything. Losing things are just way too important. So I have a GitHub account here. We're on an 11. We're gonna sign in and create a new repository. And we're gonna call this, surprise, Robotic Bartender. Description, the Robotic Bartender code. And this very well may change. We may split this up into a couple repos. It kind of depends. Now, these commands, I don't know, tutorials, whatever, pro tips, maybe, words, are exactly what we just did, where we created a git init. This is just a throwing this into the README file, commit, and then this add origin is kind of an important one, because basically right now we have some code here on my desktop and we have a repo in the GitHub, but they're not linked right now. That's what this command does. It actually says, hey, I want you to take this repo that we have. You gotta control P. There's a way to set up the bash correctly so that you can just use your normal control C, control V, but things are scawampus and I have not done that yet. So may walk through that at some point in time. Oh wait, nope, that is wrong. That did not P. We're gonna type this in because typing things in helps you remember things better.
That's what we're doing.
That's most definitely why we're doing it. Robotic bartender.git. Cool. Now to make sure this works, you can do a git remote -v. There should be something there. Cool. And then we can do git push -u origin master. And that's gonna do the git things and say, hey, all the code and stuff that I just did here, I want you to send it to GitHub, and now GitHub's gonna hold on to it. So if everything explodes, then we can go and get it. One of the coolest things that really got me to love Git was when I was a student in university, I had 3 different computers that I worked on. I had my work computer, which was a Mac that I was assigned. I had my home computer, which was Windows, very similar to this, and then I had computers up on campus that could have been who knows what. And so all I had to do was make sure that I had everything in GitHub so that it didn't matter where I went. I could just hurry, pull down my code, do whatever I needed to it, push it back up to the cloud, and then I was always up to date, never had to do any weird trying to figure out what was I doing or what was going on. So once you push, you can refresh the page, and ka-chow, we have a thing with a readme, but it's empty because we didn't put anything in it. So
Okay, before you go on, you tend to assume that everybody knows what you know. I don't know
that's
what
why
you
you're
know.
here.
So go back up. Yes, but you move on to the next thing before I can ask you a question. So go back, scroll up, go back down. You did this desktop and then project. Is that something you created earlier? Is that something you have like in your folders?
So if we come here to, you click the little folder icon, this is going to take me to, just your
just
normal
folders
thing.
That you created. The
right, so
you have a project folder and a
right,
Robotic
so
Bartender folder.
Right, so in my desktop folder, I created projects forever ago,
Okay.
And
that's what I thought was happening,
right.
but I wasn't sure if it was something in there that you were doing or if it was something you were pulling
Right.
from your computer.
No, this is why you're here, because I have that problem. So I created a folder in my own desktop projects Robotic Bartender folder, which is this. I came to the same place in the command line so that when I did my git commit stuff, like it all happened here. That's what this little git file is all the git info, which is fairly small because it's empty. So you can traverse your entire file system and do anything basically you want in the command line, but you can also do it with the normal tools associated with it. Okay, other questions. Once we install Visual Studio Code, I think this command will work where you can do code, which means Visual Studio Code space dot, and what dot means is the current directory. Wherever it is that I am right now, I want you to do the thing. Now that is bash for do the thing. The way that Visual Studio Code works, it says I'm gonna open, and then where do you want me to open to? Because you can open via like the open folder type action, which is useful. So if we hit enter, that should theoretically, here we go, open Visual Studio Code, and you'll see here we've got our nice little bit Robotic Bartender in the title here that keeps disappearing, and then we have a README. So in this README we can say Robotic Bartender. We can save that. Now, just because we saved this doesn't mean that it's pushed. It means that we have a local version. So, I guess we can go through git things. This little thing right here called source control will be populated as soon as you have a git initialization. So if you put git in this directory, you will see this. And if you look at this, it says changes, readme changes. You can actually click on this and see the different things that changed. And oh, we added, a little plus there, this Robotic Bartender. Cool. Now this doesn't seem all that big of a deal right now, but as you get into more complex things, this is so awesome to be able to see diffs. And that's what they're called, differences. Diffs is what basically everyone calls them. But going back to the fact that this hasn't been committed, it hasn't been pushed, it only exists locally, so if my computer blows up, this does not get saved. This is local. So to fix that, all we gotta do is come up here to the message and say, we did the thing. And you can all caps all your messages and just tell everybody that you're so excited to make commit messages because they're awesome. Or if you're doing this like IRL, your coworkers are probably gonna slap you at some point in time.
So is that the same as the -M on a commit to do a
yes,
message?
so this is the exact same thing. So right now, if we did this message, let's see. Yeah. So right now it's saying there are no stages to a commit. So there's this change, but we didn't add the change. So it's saying you didn't make any changes. You haven't actually added anything, so it's not going to work. So if you come to this little plus sign, click stage. This says cool. This change is now staged. Now you can commit it, and now it's committed. And then you can push on a little push. So we got a nice little thing here. We'll see if this works.
So first you add it, then you commit it, then you push it.
Yep, that is the way of Git. Cool, and we have this thing, Robotic Bartender. And if we come to this thing, we've got a nice little hashtag Robotic Bartender. So now, even if our house burns down and we lose every single thing that we own, we have the knowledge that this little string, this piece of information will be saved and it'll be okay.
Good.
So I think that is more or less where I kind of wanted to get to. We got some setup. Oh, I guess we could throw together an HTML page. Should we start that or should we just wait?
What does that involve?
Creating a file and saying HTML.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay, so just to start, we're gonna come back to here. Now we could go do the touch command in the kernel or in the bash command line, or we could come out here, we could click on this little new file thing, which will do that right there, and we're gonna call this index.html. Now index is a very common thing, and there's some kind of interesting, basically if you try to import different web things, and it obviously applies to not just web things, but index is a little special because usually what happens is that it gets grabbed first. So if you say, hey, I have all these different pages, index is the first one to be read. There's a reason for that. The reason usually being that that's how the web was built. I should double check this because I'm probably wrong, but I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. I believe that the reason that was is because in the olden days of the olden web, your index file would basically contain all your other pages. So the browser would say, okay, here's my index. Now I can go out and get all the other things. The index was kind of like a card catalog for the rest of the website.
Like how they used to do libraries where you had to find the index card and it would tell you where to go find the book.
Exactly. The same reason. That's probably why it's called index, because index card, I guess.
Maybe. Sounds cool.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea. So I'll probably look that up at some point in time. So we have an index.html here. At this point in time, I'm going to take this keyboard and hand it to April, and we're gonna do all the things. So, index HTML tags have, the way that HTML works is that it has a bunch of tags. There's all sorts of things around it that we're gonna go into later, but right now, basically all you need to do is you need to tell the browser that you have HTML. So, if you do the little alligator mouths, the less than / greater than signs, you have to shift. Okay. Now go inside of those little brackets and type HTML. Cool. Now that is an opening tag. So to make sure you have a closing tag, you're going to do the same thing, but you're going to put a / after the first alligator. Yep, just like that. So browser parsing, some of the other things that we'll go into later. Make sure you close your tags because reasons. And now what we can do is, you have an extra alligator at the end. You can hit delete. Perfect. Go inside of those. You don't even need anything else. You can just type like hello world. Okay, and then hit save. Control save. So we have a thing here. Now to actually see this, there's I think there's some extensions that you can actually just like render HTML right into Visual Studio. I find that a little tedious, so we're actually just going to come to Google. You can do it in other browsers as well. The way you do it in Google is you type file, colon, and then 3 dots, or 3 slashes. 1, 2, 3. And if you hit enter, that'll take you into a file explorer. Guess not. Do C colon, then hit enter. So it's do C colon /. Huh. It might just be smarter than it was when I first did this. So similarly to how we, went and did some directory stuff here and said, oh, we're going to change directories and figure out where we are. And same thing how we did with the file explorer here. We're actually doing a very similar thing in Chrome right now. This is a really cool little feature that most of the browsers support these days, if not all. And basically we're going to go through and get to where we actually put this file. Now, if you set your computer up normally, follow me. If you didn't set your computer up normally, then you should know what you're doing. So users, my username is Ronin, and then this is that first folder that we got to when we first opened up our terminal. If you actually look, you can see basically all the different things that are over here or over here. So knowing that that's where we are there, I need to make sure I go into desktop. I can come back and see the desktop, come back and see projects, and then the Robotic Bartender, which is right there. Now, this is the directory folder, obviously. It's not actually the file. All you gotta do is click on index.html and BAM! Hello world!
Hi.
You coded!
Woo! I did a thing!
We did a thing.
Yes, we did.
Hi.
Hi.
So, we'll probably end there. If you guys like, we're here to answer questions and show you all along the way what we're doing. If no one cares about this video, then it'll probably be found in some whole 1,200 years in the future after the nuclear war and most of humanity's dead. So, live for the now, I guess. That's like a good
really
positive
high point to end on.
Positive type solution. Cool. Thanks for watching.